This is part 2, episode 116. Fortunately, Xiao Yan had the protection of the heavenly flame within his body. Although absorbing the crimson-colored energy would still result in waves of searing pain, it was not as though he was unable to withstand it. Fortunately, this also did not cause much harm to his body. Majestic, crimson energy poured into his body. After being refined, the energy was transformed into pure Do Qi and invaded Xiao Yang's veins. The Do Qi quickly flowed and brought about the feeling of being filled with energy. Xiao Yang focused his mind once again. Due to the increasing amount of energy entering his body, he was able to sense the signs of the breakthrough opportunity that had appeared earlier. Bang bang. An increasing amount of Do Qi gathered within Xiao Yang's veins. It emitted a low and deep roar like floodwaters. Each time the Do Qi traveled along a vein, it would cause Xiao Yang's soul to tremble. This kind of feeling caused one to be mesmerized. The bright red energy within the room began to emit waves of whistling sounds as the suction force, erupting from Xiao Yang's body, suddenly strengthened. The energy transformed into many substance-like Do Qi pillars that collided with Xiao Yang's body. After which, the energy would follow Xiao Yang's pores or breathing and invade his body. The crimson energy shuffled past his pores and skin. This kind of fiery hot feeling caused Xiao Yang to feel as though he had been thrown into a pot of chili sauce. In the face of this plundering by Xiao Yang, the crimson energy that permeated the room became paler. His aura had become mightier in the face of this swallowing hiss. When the last wave of crimson energy successfully entered Xiao Yang's nostrils, his slightly trembling body suddenly stiffened. He appeared to have transformed into a statue at this moment. He did not even make the slightest movement. The interior of the room suddenly descended into a strange silence. There was the vague sound of flood water galloping present. If one were to follow the source of this noise, one would discover that this noise was coming from within Xiao Yang's body, while Xiao Yang remained as still as an old meditating monk. A vast and mighty aura was slowly being awakened. Just like a waking lion, outside of Xiao Yang's room was a quiet and serene courtyard. The courtyard was decorated with many flowers that would let out a faint fragrance when a breeze blew over. There was a stone pavilion located in the courtyard. At this moment, two beautiful figures were sitting in this stone pavilion. They sat peacefully and a chessboard was placed between the two of them. Occasionally, a clear tick sound would appear when a chess piece landed on the board. If Xiao Yang were to come out at this moment, he would definitely be shocked by this scene. These two ladies, who vaguely opposed each other from the moment they met, were quietly sitting down to play chess at this moment. It caused one to feel some disbelief. Little fairy Dr. Jiejia, I heard Xiao Yang Ji mention you back at the inner academy. He said that you are his best friend. Zunna's hand held a white jade chess piece. She gently placed it down. After which, she lifted her bright eyes, looked at the warm, alluring face across from her, and spoke with a smile. The little fairy doctor's delicate hand paused slightly while it was picking a chess piece from the chess box. Her eyes slightly rippled as she replied, he is also my best friend. Zunna smiled gently and asked with a voice as light as the wind, only a friend. The little fairy doctor slightly raised her eyes. She looked at this beautiful lady in front of her, and smiled in a non-committal manner. How could she fail to hear the probing intention in Zunna's words? Although the other party was not a simple person, she herself was not an innocent person either. By being able to form a dictatorship like the poison sect within a place like the Chuyun Empire, the little fairy doctor had to be quite scheming on top of merely possessing some strength. However, she did not like to display this side of her when she was beside Xiao Yang. Zunna's hand paused when she saw the little fairy doctor's non-committal response, where she neither agreed nor disagreed. Zunna's hand slightly trembled. Her pretty eyes revealed a deeper meaning as she looked at the little fairy doctor. She softly said, I will be leaving soon, and will have to trouble you to take care of Xiao Yang Ji in the future. As long as I am alive, nothing will happen to him. The little fairy doctor looked straight at Zunna. Her warm voice contained a needless-to-say tone. Zunna slightly nodded in the face of the little fairy doctor's reply. She gently stretched her lazy waist and immediately revealed an alluring yet delicate curve. She was just about to stand up when her eyebrows suddenly became vertical. After which, she raised her head and looked at the distant sky. The faint sound of rushing wind was wildly charging over from that spot. Swoosh! The little fairy doctor also turned her head when Zunna had sensed it. Her eyebrows were knit as she asked, is it the Ice River Valley? Or the Hall of Souls? No. They are the people from the Jiu clan. Zunna shook her head and replied, it should be the black submerged army. I can smell the unique scent of the four-winged single-horned beast. A slight ripple appeared within the space of the stone pavilion. Immediately, the black-clothed, old men flashed and appeared. They glanced at the distant sky before speaking. They should have received orders from the Jiu clan. After all, the activity from the big battle a couple of days ago was a little too large. The other white-haired, old man nodded and agreed. These fellows really follow me like shadows. Zana shook her head. Her expression was somewhat displeased. There's no choice. The black submerged army is controlled by the Elders' Council of the Jiu clan. Those old fellows, who will not die, desire that the young miss remain in the Jiu realm forever. The black-clothed, old man coldly laughed. He appeared to dislike this so-called Elders' Council. Young miss, the elders are really anxious this time around. You have even exchanged blows with the Hall of Souls during this trip of yours. If they become aware of your identity and perversely do something, the Jiu clan will turn into chaos. Therefore, the elders have already given a firm order this time around. If we fail to bring young miss back, the few of us will be punished when we return. Ling Quan looked at Zun and spoke with a solemn voice. Zun gently raised her eyebrows. She was already aware that if the matter of her exchanging blows with the Hall of Souls were to reach the Jiu realm, the Jiu clan would have immediately dispatched some people to fetch her back. However, she did not expect them to come this soon. Zun mused for a moment. After which, she turned her eyes to the tightly shut room and said, I will return after another 2 days. Ling Quan slightly frowned upon hearing this. After which, his eyes also looked to the room. A cold expression flashed across his eyes as he smiled and said, It is rumored that the young master of that Xiao clan is also here, right? I wonder where he is. Cuckoo, it has also been a couple of years since I last saw him at the Jiunan Academy. I wonder just what level he has currently reached. The expressions of Zun and the little fairy doctor in the stone pavilion slightly unhappy when they heard the vague ridicule within Ling Quan's words. Creak. While the two of them were conversing, the tightly shut door was slowly opened. A figure straightened his body and slowly walked out. At the same time, a faint laugh was emitted. It is actually the Commander Ling Quan from back then. Cuckoo, excuse me for having not been here to meet you. However, Commander Ling Quan has only reached the level of a 5-star dozong despite having trained for so many years. This has really caused Xiao Yang some surprise. The smile on Ling Quan's face was slowly withdrawn. His expression immediately became dark and solemn. He stared at the young figure as the figure slowly walked out of the room. He did not expect the trash, which did not even have the qualification to speak in front of him before, would dare to coldly mock him. Did this person think that he could do anything with young miss protecting him? The icy coldness within Ling Quan's eyes had become denser when Xiao Yang's figure finally stepped out. After which, he appeared in the courtyard. His face was covered with a brilliant smile. A majestic aura slowly spread out of Xiao Yang's body the moment he appeared. The gloomy-faced Ling Quan suddenly narrowed his eyes as this aura spread. Dozong. Ling Quan's expression had become quite ugly as he looked at the young man standing there emitting a majestic aura. 4-star Dozong. Ling Quan's eyes were gloomy as he stared at Xiao Yang. His heart was filled with disbelief. When he had seen Xiao Yang at the inner academy back then, Xiao Yang only had the strength of a Do Ling. At that time, Xiao Yang did not even possess the qualifications to meet his eyes. If not for the presence of First Elder Su Qian back then, he would have definitely given Xiao Yang a memory that he would not forget. However, Ling Quan had never expected this trash of the Xiao clan to reach the Dozong class when they finally met again, after only a short few years. Moreover, Xiao Yang was only 1 star weaker than him. How could Ling Quan not be stunned by this vast difference? While Ling Quan's expression was gloomy, Xiao Yang's eyes slowly swept across him. Immediately, the corner of his mouth was lifted into a slight smile that was filled with a chill. Back then, this fellow had wanted to fight him when fetching Zun. If First Elder Su Qian had not intervened back then, the result would have been an unimaginable one. Even though the two of them did not exchange blows back then, Xiao Yang firmly remembered this Ling Quan in his heart. The ridicule that Ling Quan had given him back then was something that he had firmly remembered in his heart. Xiao Yang was not some magnanimous person. Back then, Ling Quan had humiliated him when he was still weak. This person even wanted to murder him toward the end. This point alone was enough to make sure Xiao Yang never forgot him. It is unexpected that the Xiao clan, which has declined to such an extent, is able to produce an expert Dozong. This has really surprised this commander. Ling Quan looked at Xiao Yang in a dark and solemn manner for a moment before he coldly laughed. There is no need for Commander Ling Quan to spend the effort. Who can clearly speak about such things? Back then, I was only a doeling when you met me. A couple of years later, it will perhaps be difficult to determine who is the stronger or weaker one. Xiao Yang slightly smiled as he replied. Ling Quan also shook his head upon hearing the ridicule in Xiao Yang's tone. He coldly laughed, a villain achieving his goal. However, you have only reached a 4-star zone, yet you dare to act arrogantly in front of this commander. In my eyes, you are little different from the you back then. Ling Quan. Zana's pretty face turned slightly cold while she cried out. She appeared to have sensed the partially present killing intent within Ling Quan's eyes. After being shouted at in this stern manner by Zana, even Ling Quan did not dare to slight her. He hurriedly withdrew his eyes, bowed, and cupped his hands to Zana. However, the dense killing intent within his eyes became more intense when he lowered his head. Zana had shouted because of Xiao Yang. This caused his heart to feel an extreme anger. Of course, he naturally did not dare to place this fury on Zana. Therefore, Xiao Yang had become the best target for his anger. Young miss, the elders sternly told us before we left that we must bring young miss back to the Jiu realm without wasting even half a day's time. If anyone dares to stop us, we are allowed to kill them regardless who they are. Ling Quan cupped his hands and respectfully explained. However, after speaking, his dangerous eyes slowly drifted toward Xiao Yang. Zana, are you leaving? Xiao Yang by the side was startled when he heard this. He ignored Ling Quan's gaze as he glanced at Zana with a slight frown. Zana hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. This period of time was when her bloodline was awakening. The members of the clan would definitely be worried of her being outside. If she did not return this time around, it was likely that the true experts from the clan would personally come the next time. At that time, some unexpected changes might occur if they were to meet Xiao Yang. This was not something that she wished to see. Zana took a couple of steps and arrived in front of Xiao Yang. Her warm hands adjusted Xiao Yang's somewhat messy clothes as she softly said, I cannot remain outside for too long this time around. Otherwise, I will end up bringing some trouble to Xiao Yang Gege. Once Xiao Yang Gege has resolved his issues, you should be in possession of the ability to come to the Jiu clan. Zana will wait for you. Xiao Yang's eyes focused on the girl in front of him, whose pretty face revealed some attachment. He was quiet for a moment before slowly nodding. After all, he was not an unreasonable person. Zana had been doing everything for his sake. If he were to insist, he would really have let her down. Wait for me. Xiao Yang ignored those around him as he grabbed Zana's jade-like waist and whispered to her. A faint, bright redness surfaced on Zana's elegant face as she lowered her snow-white chin. Release young miss. Ling Quan's eyes were red as he looked at Zana, who was being exceptionally intimate with Xiao Yang. The jealousy within his heart had nearly covered his sense of reasoning. He had always viewed Zana like a goddess in his heart. He did not allow others to taint her, yet the goddess in his heart had revealed the emotions of a girl to Xiao Yang, a complete reversal of her usually cold and indifferent attitude in the Jiu clan. How could this not cause Ling Quan to become as furious as a wild beast? Ling Quan, remember your status. The matters regarding young miss are something you cannot scream out loud. The face of the black-clothed elder by the side sank as he reprimanded Ling Quan. Ling Quan knows his offense. Ling Quan's face trembled upon being reprimanded by the black-clothed old man. He immediately inhaled a deep breath, and the redness in his eyes gradually disappeared. However, his eyes were dark and cold when he looked at Xiao Yang. Let's go. Zana appeared to have completely ignored Ling Quan's voice. She took a deep look at Xiao Yang before gently taking a step back. After which, she turned around and left. Her elegant face returned to its cold and indifferent appearance when she passed by Ling Quan. Her calm and completely rippleless voice caused Ling Quan's fist to tighten. Zana bunched her eyebrows together after her voice sounded. She looked at the stiff and unmoving body of Ling Quan by the side. Her face became a little chilly as she solemnly questioned, Commander Ling Quan. Ling Quan inhaled a deep breath of air upon hearing Zana's deep voice. His eyes were dark and vicious as he looked at Xiao Yang. However, he ended up slowly shaking his head as he said, Young miss, please leave first. Ling Quan still has a task by the elders to carry out. Zana's expression changed upon hearing his words. She suddenly turned around and her cool eyes focused on Ling Quan. She said each word with a pause, I have said, now, immediately, leave this place. Ling Quan clenched his teeth tightly, but ended up shaking his head again. Ling Quan, you are really becoming bolder. The faces of the black-clothed elders slowly turned dark and grave when they saw him shake his head. They took a step forward in unison. A frightening aura covered Ling Quan. The dozen-plus people who had followed Ling Quan here faced each other upon seeing this unexpected change. However, they did not dare to say anything. Ling Quan was their superior, while Zun possessed a noble status. At this moment, choosing to be blind and deaf was the best option. Ling Quan's knees buckled slightly in the face of the frightening aura from the two black-clothed elders. However, he forcefully endured it. His dark and solemn eyes stared firmly at Xiao Yang, causing one to shudder even without feeling cold. The more Zun shouted at him because of Xiao Yang, the greater the density of the jealousy in his heart. This jealousy had even caused his reasoning to become blurry. Old Lin, capture him and bring him back. Zun's face had gradually turned ice-cold. She waved her sleeves and coldly ordered, acknowledged. The two black-clothed elders respectfully responded upon hearing this. They took a step forward and were about to attack, when Ling Quan suddenly took 2 steps back. A flash appeared over his hand and a palm-sized, blood-red jade tablet appeared in it. There was a flamboyant GU word written on it, GU Jade Token. The two black-clothed elders paused their footsteps upon seeing this blood-red jade token. Their faces suddenly changed. Young miss, it is not that Ling Quan refuses to listen to your orders, but I have received a firm order. Ling Quan's hand firmly held the blood-red jade token. His eyes were unusually dense and cold when he stared at Xiao Yang. The smile on the corner of his mouth appeared exceptionally sinister. The elders have given me a serious order. If I meet a member of the Xiao clan during this trip, I am to invite him back to the GU clan for a gathering. If the other party refuses, I have the right to use force to forcefully remove him. Therefore, Xiao Yang, you should obediently leave with me. Ling Quan's chilly voice slowly resounded within the courtyard, causing the temperature of this place to become unusually cold. The atmosphere within the courtyard stiffened at this moment. A gentle breeze blew over, but it was unable to resolve the tense atmosphere. In front of the blood-red jade token in Ling Quan's hands, even the two black-clothed elders did not dare do anything. This blood jade token possessed an extremely powerful deterrence within the GU clan. Even the two of them did not dare to easily ignore it. Xiao Yang's eyes turned to Ling Quan. Immediately, they paused on his dense face. A chill slowly surged within Xiao Yang's dark black eyes. Zun's eyes paused on the blood-colored jade token in Ling Quan's hands for an instant. Her face had also become very dangerous. She did not expect this fellow to be in possession of the blood jade token. Ling Quan, leave with me now, and I can treat it as though nothing has happened. Zun inhaled a gentle breath of air. Her bright eyes stared at Ling Quan as she slowly spoke. The corner of Ling Quan's mouth slightly trembled. A moment later, he slowly shook his head. The more Zun acted like this, the greater the intensity of the killing intent in his heart was. Young miss, this is an order from the elders. I have no right not to obey it. Zun's expression gradually calmed down in the face of the words from Ling Quan. She softly said, all right. I will remember this. Ling Quan's face slightly changed when he heard Zun's soft tone. In his heart, he knew that he had really angered Zun this time around. It is all because of this little trash from the Xiao clan. Even if I have to take the risk of offending young miss today, I will ensure that I give this trash a memory that he will have difficulty forgetting. Ling Quan's expression became scarier. His wild beast-like eyes bore into Xiao Yang. After which, the hand he used to hold the blood jade token slowly tightened and a slight cracking sound appeared. Are you going to follow me, or should I remove you by force? A hoarse, cold voice was slowly emitted from Ling Quan's mouth. Xiao Yang's eyes looked at Ling Quan. The corner of his mouth was finally lifted into a dense, cold arc. This fellow had successfully roused the killing intent within his heart. Do you really think that this is still the same as back then? Ling Qian laughed in his extreme anger when he heard these words from Xiao Yang. He said, all right, it looks like you refuse to return with me to the GU clan, right? Xiao Yang smiled as he nodded. How could he not know that Ling Quan was trying to find an excuse to attack him? However, how would the other party know that he was also adopting such a mentality? Given the grudges from back then, would he not appear a little useless if he simply allowed Ling Quan to leave like this? Moreover, the current Xiao Yang really wished to let the commander of the Black Submerged Army know that even though he could easily take Zunna away from him back then, this commander lost the qualification to do so now if Xiao Yang did not allow it to happen. Ling Quan also smiled when he saw the grin on Xiao Yang's face. The dense, cold killing intent within his smile could be sensed by even a blind person. Today, this commander will let you know that regardless of how you jump, you are but an ant in the eyes of the GU clan. Do you really think that your clan, which does not even possess the qualification to step into the Central Plains, is that Xiao clan from back then. Firstly, as long as it is a strength that one can command, it is a strength that belongs to oneself. Naive words like relying on other people will only end up causing others to laugh at you. If you did not rely on the name of the Jiyu clan, what are you with your strength as a 5-star dozong? Xiao Yang faintly curled his lips. His smile was becoming bone-chillingly cold. Secondly, you do not have the qualification to mention the ancestor of the Xiao clan. Thirdly, when dealing with you, there is no need for anyone else to help. Xiao Yang smiled as he looked at Ling Quan, whose face had twitched repeatedly while Xiao Yang spoke. After which, Xiao Yang pulled the little fairy doctor, and gently got her to move aside. The little fairy doctor's eyebrows were slightly vertical when she felt his tugging. You don't really think that I am unable to deal with someone of this grade, do you? Xiao Yang turned his head, looked at the little fairy doctor, and asked with a smile. The little fairy doctor helplessly shook her head when she heard this. She could only do as he wanted. This person called Ling Quan was someone that she really despised. Xiao Yang Ge, you need not hold back. I will take care of all consequences. Zana spoke with a faint voice. By being able to get her, someone who possessed a cold and indifferent character, to utter these words, it was obvious to what extent Ling Quan had angered her today. The two black-clothed elders by the side exchanged looks with one another. After which, they let out bitter laughs. They quietly scolded Ling Quan for not being sensible. Did he think he could recklessly act, just because he was holding the blood jade token? They could imagine that even if this fellow could successfully return to the Jiyu clan, his future fate would definitely not be a good one. Xiao Yang smiled. His eyes turned to the surroundings of the courtyard. He cupped his hands together and said, Elder Yizhong, this is only some private matters. It does not have anything to do with the Yi clan. Please just leave this place to us for a moment. Mr. Xiao Yang really knows how to joke. Forget about this plot of land. As long as you open your mouth, the old me will not protest, even if it is this entire Yi manor. Yizhong, who was outside of this courtyard, hurriedly replied with a smile. The Yi clan had been attracted over by the 4-winged single-horned beasts in the sky. Moreover, he also understood that those who were related to Xiao Yang were definitely not ordinary people. Most likely, the Yi clan could not afford to offend them. The heavy ruler was accompanied by a jade-green flame as it ruthlessly cut through the air. After which, it collided with the thunderbolt-like dragon. Sparks shot in all directions. The two figures were shaken until they took repeated steps back the moment they collided. At the same time, Ling Quan's expression vaguely changed. The powerful force that was transmitted through his spear had caused his palm to feel a little numb. Brat, you really have quite a great brute strength. Ling Quan furiously laughed. His body moved and an afterimage remained in the original spot. The next time he appeared, he was already a short distance in front of Xiao Yang. He swung the lightning spear, and it appeared like a randomly dancing silver snake as it trickily pierced toward all the fatal spots on Xiao Yang's body. Lightning snake dance. Numerous spear afterimages surfaced in the air. However, Xiao Yang's body turned illusionary at this moment. He occasionally shifted and narrowly dodged all of Ling Quan's sharp spear techniques. A chill flashed across Ling Quan's eyes when he saw that Xiao Yang's agility was so mysterious. His palm abruptly smashed into the spear handle. This suddenly explosive force caused the lightning spear to shoot out like a crossbow. Even the space itself was torn along the way, forming a dark black fissure. The long spear shot out at a lightning-like speed. However, a fire hand rushed out just when it was about to strike Xiao Yang's chest. This fire hand forcefully grabbed the body of the spear and stopped its forward momentum. Xiao Yang abruptly clenched his hand and the long spear was snapped apart. It transformed into a countless number of silver snakes, which finally turned into nothingness as the flame rose. Fancy spear techniques are completely useless. A cold smile surfaced on Xiao Yang's face as he destroyed Ling Quan's long spear. The spear technique might be fast, but under the cover of Xiao Yang's spiritual strength, all of it was completely useless. Ling Quan's expression finally revealed a drastic change for the first time after the long spear was destroyed. Ling Qian's body rushed back. At the same time, both of his hands formed some seals with lightning-like speed. They were hand seals that Xiao Yang was extremely familiar with. It was the God Seal skill, Skyfire 3 Mysterious Change, First Change. Xiao Yang coldly laughed in his heart. With his current strength, using the Skyfire 3 Mysterious Change was something he could accomplish almost instantly. He had already mastered this first change to the point of complete mastery. After letting out the cold cry, Xiao Yang's aura suddenly soared. It reached a level that was equivalent to Ling Quan's strength. His body moved as a silver glow flashed. After which, he appeared in front of Ling Quan in a ghost-like manner. A frosty expression flashed across his dark black eyes, open mountain seal. Xiao Yang's speed caused Ling Quan's heart to be shaken. Ling Quan's hand seal was swiftly completed, and it was immediately thrown forward. Let's see just how you will open the mountain. Xiao Yang's firm punch, void of any fancy moves, ruthlessly smashed into Ling Quan's hand just as it was just thrown forward. A jade-green flame surged out at this moment. Xiao Yang could not be more familiar with this open mountain seal. He clearly knew about the point it released its strength and some of its weakness. This punch also made contact with the point on Ling Quan's palm, where the strength would be scattered the most. Bang! A flame shot throughout the sky and a slight cracking sound appeared on Ling Quan's wrist. His forehead was instantly covered in cold perspiration. However, Ling Quan's mental strength could be considered quite good. His feet swiftly stepped back, after having been ruthlessly counterattacked by Xiao Yang. Additionally, one of his hands had once again formed some seals, yet before the seals could be completely formed, a fire hand appeared out of nowhere and firmly grabbed his hand. Your spear technique is fanciful, your seals are formed too slowly, and your do chi is thin. You are far lousier than my expectations. How disappointing. I shall give you a one-word evaluation. Xiao Yang's hand firmly grabbed Ling Qian's palm, as he slowly shook his head. His eyes contained some pity, as he looked at Ling Qian's pale face. Weak. A calm voice slowly resounded over the sky. After which, it gently spread. The dozen-plus black submerged army members, who were Ling Quan's subordinates, were stunned. They had never expected Ling Quan to be this miserably defeated in Xiao Yang's hands. They had clearly seen the lightning-like exchange earlier. Xiao Yang didn't even use a single do technique since the beginning. In other words, Xiao Yang had relied on the do chi within his body, yet not only did he block all of Ling Quan's do techniques, but he had captured Ling Quan in a lightning-like fashion, after only a couple of exchanges. The shock that had been formed by this scene was considerably great to them. He is the trash of the Xiao clan that Commander Ling Quan spoke of. Such strength, even among the members of the younger generation of the Jiyu clan, he could be ranked within the top 10. The dozen-plus people faced each other. All of them saw a shocked expression in each other's eyes. Xiao Yang's simple attack had given them a great shock. This little fellow's fighting experience is much greater than Ling Quan's fighting experience. Moreover, his do chi is sturdy. At one glance, one can tell that he is someone with a very strong foundation. Ling Quan's strength was obtained after having undergone the Di altar baptism. Moreover, it has not been tempered much after the baptism. Compared to Xiao Yang's do chi, his do chi is extremely faint. The black-clothed elders slowly nodded after watching the scene in the sky. Their voices contained some praise. From the sturdiness of Xiao Yang's do chi, they could tell that he had truly relied on himself to train one step at a time. A person with such tough character would definitely advance much further on the training road compared to Ling Quan in the future. This fellow Ling Quan has really suffered out his own humiliation this time around. Zuna by the side did not feel the least bit surprised by the lightning-like battle earlier. She had an impeccable understanding of Xiao Yang's strength. Ling Quan had been blessed with outstanding talent since he was young. Although he had undergone the elite training of the Jiyu clan, he had seldom experienced a life and death duel. His combat experience was just like that of the heavens and the earth when compared with Xiao Yang. Normally, it was not possible to tell anything from one's aura, but the gap between the two was clearly revealed now that they had fought. Ling Quan's expression had turned ashen because of Xiao Yang's evaluation, which was filled with pity. His body continuously trembled. A moment later, his face suddenly turned as red as blood. The do chi within his body turbulently surged. Do you think that you, trash from the Xiao clan, has the qualification to evaluate this commander? The lighting shield formed wave after wave of ripples, as it blocked the force on Xiao Yang's fist. Ling Quan's face had become unusually ferocious at this moment. Blood lingered in his eyes, causing him to appear quite terrifying. Secret technique. Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed as he sensed the aura of Ling Quan, which had suddenly soared. His body flashed and he nimbly took over a dozen steps back, transforming blood skill. This fellow really doesn't want to live. He has even used this kind of self-harming secret technique. The expressions of the black-clothed elders in the courtyard involuntarily sank when they saw this. Immediately, their gazes turned to Zana as they asked, "Young miss." "There is no need to bother about him," Zana shook her head. The corner of her mouth contained a faint, cold smile. "He is merely seeking his own humiliation." A lightning glow flashed all over Ling Quan's body in the sky. A blood-red thing was vaguely seeping out. His gaze stared savagely at Xiao Yang as he clenched his fist. A lightning-long spear, filled with traces of blood, slowly appeared. Xiao Yang watched Ling Quan, who was carrying a frightening momentum. His eyebrows were vaguely knitted. The secret techniques of the Jiyu clan was quite strong. Currently, the strength of this fellow should be close to the level of a 7-star Do Zone. However, regardless of how strong the secret technique is, it is completely useless if one does not possess a firm foundation. Until now, you have yet to reach even half of my expectations. Xiao Yang slowly shook his head. He had indeed overestimated this Ling Quan a little. Although Ling Quan's strength had reached that of a 5-star Do Zone, from the way Xiao Yang looked at it, he was at the very most similar to a 4-star Do Zone. If he did not possess the help of those high-class Do techniques, even some 3-star Do Zones with a strong foundation could fight with him for over 100 exchanges. Ling Quan had used a secret technique and forcefully raised his strength to that of the peak of a 6-star Do Zone, near that of the 7th-star level. However, in the eyes of Xiao Yang, who had used the first change of the Skyfire 3 mysterious change, Ling Quan still did not pose much of a threat. "What do you consider yourself? Once this commander captures you, I will personally treat this mouth of yours." Xiao Yang's words had caused the ferocity within Ling Quan's eyes to become denser. A moment later, he finally let out a dense smile. His body trembled and disappeared from the spot. Xiao Yang slowly shook his head after seeing Ling Quan's figure disappear. His feet suddenly, but gently shifted half a step to the left. Ling Quan's expression had become dark and solemn after his body pulled back. With the help of his withdrawing momentum, the seal on his hands once again changed and a majestic Do Qi was swiftly formed on his palm. Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes upon seeing this. His body moved, transforming into a blurry black line that rushed out. After suffering from the last loss, Ling Quan no longer dared to approach Xiao Yang. His hand released the lightning-long spear, and his body formed a half-rotating stance. At the same time, his feet ruthlessly kicked the handle of the long spear. The lightning-long spear was just like a silver dragon. Borrowing this fierce force, it shot toward Xiao Yang in a ferocious manner. Xiao Yang's figure paused as he watched the silver glow shooting over. An afterimage remained while his body suddenly accelerated. His body leaped, and his toes accurately pressed on the body of the long spear. After slight contact, Xiao Yang's body appeared in front of Ling Quan in a ghost-like manner. See flipping seal. Xiao Yang had just materialized when a chilly glow flashed across Ling Quan's eyes. The energy crystal-like handprint ruthlessly smashed toward Xiao Yang's front. Ling Quan's handprint was swiftly expanded in Xiao Yang's dark black eyes. Xiao Yang's head suddenly turned with great surprise. At the same time, his palm rushed out from beside his ear as he extended his hand. After which, his elbow ruthlessly cut forward like a blade, crack. Xiao Yang's elbow was covered by a jade-green flame as it ruthlessly smashed against Ling Qian's wrist. The powerful force caused Ling Quan's wrist to emit a clear bone-cracking sound. Xiao Yang's attack was ruthless and swift. He did not even allow Ling Quan to react even a little as his elbow smashed Ling Quan's wrist. A merciless expression also flashed across his eyes as his fist, that was covered by a jade-green flame, ruthlessly smashed toward Ling Quan's face. Before Ling Quan's miserable cry could be emitted, because of the intense pain that was transmitted from his wrist, the hot and fierce wind that blew in front of him caused his head to be covered with cold sweat. During this short dozen-plus exchanges with Xiao Yang, he could truly be considered to have experienced what it meant by staking one life to take another. Moreover, the thing that caused Ling Quan's heart to become cold was that only Xiao Yang was attempting to take another's life during the entire fight. Each time Ling Quan attacked, Xiao Yang would dodge right, at the most dangerous and critical moment, bang. The fist that was wrapped by jade-green flame was just about to strike Ling Quan when a lightning barrier once again appeared. It barely managed to block the punch amid a low and deep sound. Before Ling Quan could relax after having blocked Xiao Yang's attack, he was shocked to find so many fist shadows suddenly appearing in front of him. The fierce and vicious force contained in each fist shadow caused his heart to tremble. Bang! 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 The fist shadows poured onto the light shield in front of him like a storm, causing ripples to continuously form. A moment later, a boom finally sounded. The shield burst apart under this clear sound, bang. A coldness appeared in Xiao Yang's eyes when the lightning shield was blasted apart. Xiao Yang's fist changed, and it ruthlessly slammed into Ling Quan's face with his shocked eyes. Grug. Xiao Yang's fist landed firmly, causing Ling Quan to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood along with a couple of teeth. His body violently shot backwards, like a bird with its wings broken. After which, he heavily collided into a wall of the courtyard. The frightening force shook the wall until it collapsed. Rock fragments flew in all directions, transforming into a pile of rubble. Xiao Yang was expressionless. His body flashed, and he landed from the sky. A leg ruthlessly shot out and kicked the pile of rubble. A sharp miserable scream sounded after a deep, dark hole was formed. Xiao Yang's foot slowly landed on the rubble. He curled his hand and a suction force surged out. Many rock fragments were shattered. After which, Ling Quan, who was covered in fresh blood, was revealed under the rock fragments. After glancing at Ling Quan, Xiao Yang grabbed with his hand and sucked Ling Quan into his palm from across space. Commander Ling Quan, does this trash of the Xiao clan possess the qualification to evaluate you? Xiao Yang's hand gently held Ling Quan's neck. Currently, all he needed to do was use a little strength, and this commander of the Black Submerged Army, who had acted arrogantly in front of him back then, would lose his life. Ling Quan struggled for a moment as he looked at the smiling face. His eyes finally revealed some terror. He recalled that Xiao Yang had never even used one do technique in this fight with him. This was a kind of contempt, but even though this was the case, Ling Quan still lost. Moreover, he had lost so miserably. Only at this moment did he understand that the Xiao Yang, standing in front of him, was no longer that small do Ling from the inner academy back then. A river flows 30 years west and 30 years east. One should never look down on a young person. The corner of Xiao Yang's mouth was curled into a cold smile as he observed the terrified expression that surfaced in Ling Quan's eyes. He believed that after the fight today, he would leave behind an imprint and a phobia in the other party's heart. In the future, regardless of what level this Ling Quan reached, this shadow of failure would surface from deep within his soul as long as he stood in front of Xiao Yang. This would result in Ling Quan being unable to maintain his peak condition in front of Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang tightly held Ling Quan's neck with his hand. A moment later, he tossed Ling Quan, ruthlessly sending him into the stone pillar of the stone pavilion. That powerful force caused some lines to spread across the stone pillar. Grug. Ling Quan could not resist spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood after receiving such a heavy blow. His life force was weak as he lay on the ground. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Commander Ling Quan. Those dozen-plus members of the Black Submerged Army hurriedly rushed over upon seeing this. Ling Quan was after all their superior. If he was beaten to death by Xiao Yang in this place, they would definitely have difficulty escaping punishment when they returned to the Jiyu clan. Relax, he is still alive. Xiao Yang randomly rubbed his fist on his clothes as he faintly informed them. Although he really disliked this Ling Quan, and Zun said that she would take responsibility if anything happened, he was still not a reckless person. He clearly understood that if he were to kill Ling Quan, Zuna would end up in trouble, especially if she took responsibility for everything. Xiao Yang was not happy to have such a thing occur. Those 10+ Black Submerged Army finally sighed in relief after hearing Xiao Yang's words. They faced each other only to quietly sigh. One of them separated from the group and picked up Ling Quan, who had turned into a pile of mud. After which, their bodies moved, and they rushed onto the four-winged single-horned beast. They had never received that whatever elder's order. Moreover, even if they did receive it, they did not dare to attack with Zuna around. After all, they did not have the same backing Ling Quan had behind them. Young one, you are really ruthless in your attacks. It is likely that Ling Quan will require 2 to 3 months to completely recover from those injuries. Moreover, even if he does fully recover, he will likely suffer from some sequelae. The black-robed old man glanced at Xiao Yang with deeper meaning as he commented on the situation. Xiao Yang smiled. Although those injuries were serious, it was at the very least better than losing one's life. If he was not afraid of giving Zun some unnecessary trouble, Ling Quan would have died today. Xiao Yang's eyes turned to Zun beside him. A reluctance surged into his heart. He asked, "Are you leaving now?" Zun gently nodded. She had only been with Xiao Yang for a short while, yet Ling Quan's group had already come chasing her. If she were to stay a little longer, it was likely that the ones who would come next would not be at Ling Quan's level. Moreover, if the other party still insisted on bringing Xiao Yang back to the Jiyu clan, there would truly be some trouble. Seeing this, Xiao Yang softly sighed and ceased saying anything to hold her back. He knew that Zun had her reasons for being in such a hurry to leave. Wait for me in the Jiyu clan. After I participate in the pill gathering and rescue Yao Lao, I will head to the Jiyu clan to look for you. Zuna sweetly smiled upon seeing Xiao Yang's serious expression. She softly inclined her snow-white chin and said, "Zuna will wait for you." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.